Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story, which starts with an ordinary act that leads to something extraordinary. Jack Harris was a quiet, reserved man. He had a steady job as an accountant, living a simple life in the city. His world was predictable and calm, and while he was content, something always felt missing. Jack had never been one to seek attention or fame, but he believed in the importance of helping others. That's why, one afternoon, he found himself at the local blood bank, rolling up his sleeve for a donation. It wasn't a huge deal to him, just another good deed, something he had done many times before. He didn't expect much to come of it, other than a feeling of satisfaction for doing the right thing. But as fate would have it, that small act would set in motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. Weeks passed after the donation, and Jack went about his usual routine. Little did he know, a woman named Sarah, a woman he had never met, was fighting for her life in a hospital room not far from where he lived. Sarah had been diagnosed with a rare blood disorder, and her situation was becoming more desperate by the day. After a long search for a compatible donor, they were about to give up hope. And then, a call came in from the blood bank, telling them that a match had been found. Jack's blood was the miracle Sarah needed to survive. Sarah's recovery was slow but steady. Over the next few months, she healed, physically and emotionally. She was filled with gratitude for the anonymous donor who had saved her life, but she never imagined that she would ever meet him. Meanwhile, Jack went on living his quiet life, unaware that he had made such a significant impact on someone's world. But fate wasn't done with them yet. One evening, Jack attended a local charity event. He wasn't fond of these types of social gatherings, but he had promised a colleague he would show up. He was in the crowd, minding his own business, when a woman stepped up to the podium, her presence striking and elegant. It was Sarah. She began speaking about her health battle, about how a donor had saved her life. As she spoke, Jack's heart skipped a beat. Her story was all too familiar. The name she mentioned, the blood type, the timing, it was his. It was the moment Jack realized that the life he had saved was standing right in front of him. Sarah finished her speech, and the room erupted into applause. Jack couldn't take his eyes off her, feeling a strange pull to her. He wasn't sure what to do next. Was it fate? Was it simply coincidence that they were in the same room? He wasn't sure, but something inside him told him that this was the moment to introduce himself. After the event, Jack gathered his courage and approached Sarah. He hesitated for a moment, unsure how to start the conversation, but then he simply said, "Excuse me, I think I know you." Sarah looked up, a little surprised, but smiled warmly. "Do you?" she replied, her eyes scanning his face, as if trying to place him. "I think I'm the one who donated the blood that saved your life," Jack said quietly, almost as if he didn't believe it himself. Sarah's expression shifted. Her eyes widened with recognition, followed by a soft gasp. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You're him. You're the one who saved me." She took a step closer, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't even know how to thank you." Jack smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in years. "There's no need to thank me," he replied. "I was just doing what anyone would have done." But deep down, he knew that what had started as a simple act of kindness had led them to this moment. What he didn't know yet was that this encounter would set them both on a journey they never expected. After their chance meeting at the charity event, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something in his life had shifted. He found himself thinking about Sarah constantly, wondering if fate had truly brought them together in such an unusual way. Sarah, on the other hand, was just as intrigued by Jack. She had never met anyone like him, a man so humble, so unassuming, and yet capable of such profound kindness. After their brief conversation, she had felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, but also something more, a spark of connection. It was strange, given the circumstances. She had never believed in love at first sight, but there was something about Jack that felt different. The next day, Sarah couldn't help but send him a message. "Thank you for everything," she wrote, her fingers hovering over the keyboard for a moment before she hit send. "I don't know what I would have done without you." It was a simple message, but she felt it carried the weight of everything she had been through. To her surprise, Jack replied almost immediately. "It was the least I could do. I'm just glad you're okay." His words were warm, and Sarah felt a sense of ease. She hadn't expected him to respond so quickly, let alone with such kindness. A part of her had wondered if she was bothering him, but his reply felt sincere, genuine. They continued texting for a few days, slowly getting to know each other. Jack found out that Sarah was a successful businesswoman, but her life had been overshadowed by the illness that had nearly taken it away. Sarah, on the other hand, learned that Jack had never been married, that his life had been focused on his career, and that he had always kept to himself. They both found comfort in their conversations, finding solace in the fact that neither one had judged the other. They were both dealing with their own burdens, but for some reason, talking to each other made everything feel just a little bit lighter. It wasn't long before Jack asked if they could meet again, this time for coffee. Sarah agreed, feeling both nervous and excited. When they met at a small cafe downtown, there was an undeniable connection between them. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories about their childhoods, their hopes, and the things they wanted to do with their lives. Jack couldn't help but admire Sarah's strength. She had been through so much, yet she still managed to smile and laugh. Her vulnerability made her even more beautiful to him. Sarah, too, was beginning to see Jack in a new light. He wasn't just the man who had saved her life. He was someone who made her feel safe, someone who made her heart beat a little faster. As the weeks went by, their friendship grew deeper. They spent more time together, finding excuses to meet for coffee, go to dinner, or even just talk on the phone late into the night. It was clear to both of them that something was shifting, but neither one was ready to admit it yet. They had both been hurt in the past. Sarah had spent years fighting a life-threatening illness, and Jack had built walls around himself, afraid of letting anyone in. But the connection they had was undeniable, and it was beginning to change them both. One afternoon, Sarah was having lunch at her office when she received a call from Jack. He sounded urgent, but not panicked. "I have something I need to tell you," he said. "Can we meet tonight?" Sarah agreed, her curiosity piqued. That evening, they met at the same cafe where they had shared their first coffee together. Jack looked at her with a serious expression, something that wasn't usually present in his warm, easygoing demeanor. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Jack said, his voice steady but uncertain. "And I realized something. I can't pretend that this is just a simple friendship anymore. I care about you, Sarah. I've come to realize that I've been falling for you, and I think it's more than just the fact that I saved your life." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The words she had been waiting to hear for so long were finally spoken aloud. It felt surreal, like a dream she hadn't dared to let herself have. She didn't know what to say at first, so she simply smiled, her eyes softening as she reached across the table to take his hand. "I feel the same way, Jack," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to admit it, but I've been feeling the same. I think I've been falling for you too." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. It was a moment neither of them would ever forget. In the days that followed, things between them changed. There was no going back now. They both knew that. They were in this together, and whatever happened next, they would face it as a team. But even as their relationship blossomed, something in the back of Jack's mind lingered. The memory of that day when he had saved Sarah's life with a simple act of kindness. He couldn't help but wonder, was this fate? Or had this been a twist of destiny, a way for two people who had both been lost to find each other? As the weeks passed, Jack and Sarah's relationship grew stronger, though neither of them could quite shake the feeling that their connection had started in an unconventional way. They were both a little hesitant to label what was happening between them, but the truth was undeniable. Jack had never felt this way about anyone before. He found himself thinking about Sarah constantly, her smile, her laugh, and the way she made him feel understood in a way he had never experienced. She had become his anchor, the person he looked forward to talking to at the end of each long day. Sarah, too, had started to realize how much Jack had come to mean to her. At first, she had thought it was just a gratitude-fueled attachment, but now she could see that it was so much more. She wasn't just in love with the man who saved her life. She was in love with the man who had helped her heal in ways no one else had. She saw in him a tenderness, a quiet strength that pulled her in deeper with each passing day. But even with their growing feelings for each other, Sarah still struggled with her fear of being hurt. She had been through so much, and trusting someone fully was a challenge she wasn't sure she was ready to face. One evening, Jack invited Sarah over for dinner at his apartment. He had cooked, something he usually didn't do, but tonight was different. Tonight, he wanted to show her that he wasn't just the man who saved her life. He was someone who could offer her more, someone who could be there for her, through the good and the bad. As they sat down to eat, there was an easy comfort between them, the kind that comes from spending time with someone who feels like home. But despite the warmth in the room, there was an undercurrent of tension. Sarah wasn't sure if she was ready to let her guard down completely, and Jack could sense it. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Jack said, breaking the silence between bites of dinner. "And I don't want to rush anything, but I feel like we're both avoiding something." Sarah looked up at him, her fork paused midair. She could tell by the look on his face that he was serious, that this wasn't just another casual conversation. She put her fork down and met his gaze, taking a deep breath. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Jack reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I mean, we're both scared," Jack said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Scared of what happens next. Scared of getting hurt. But I can't keep pretending that this is just about gratitude or friendship. I care about you, Sarah. More than I've ever cared about anyone." Sarah's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had known it. Of course, she had felt it, too, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel so real. For a moment, she wasn't sure what to say. She wanted to tell him she felt the same, but she also knew that love wasn't something to be rushed. She had to be sure, had to be ready. "I care about you too, Jack," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared. I've been through so much, and I'm afraid to let someone in. To let you in." Jack squeezed her hand gently, a reassuring smile on his face. "I get it," he said, "but I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for the long haul, Sarah. I want to be there for you, no matter what. I just need you to trust me." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time, and realized that this man, the man who had saved her life, was someone she could trust. He had never once asked for anything in return. He had been there for her when she needed it most, and now he was asking her to take a chance on something real. She felt a wave of emotion wash over her, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of hope. "I want to trust you, Jack," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "I really do." They sat there for a while, just holding hands, neither of them needing to speak. It was in that quiet moment that Sarah realized that, despite her fears, this was what she had been waiting for. The love she had dreamed of, unconditional, patient, and kind, was right in front of her. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of happiness again. In the days that followed, things between them started to change in subtle but meaningful ways. They grew closer, their bond deepening with each passing conversation and shared experience. Jack, who had once kept his emotions tightly guarded, began to open up to Sarah in ways he never had with anyone before. He found himself sharing his dreams, his fears, and his hopes for the future. Sarah, too, began to let her guard down, allowing Jack into parts of her life she had kept hidden for so long. And with every step they took forward, they both felt like they were moving closer to something beautiful, something real. As the days went by, Jack and Sarah's relationship grew deeper, moving from simple conversations to moments of vulnerability and trust. Their bond was no longer just a result of the blood donation that had brought them together. It was now built on shared experiences, understanding, and a genuine connection. Jack had never felt so alive. He had spent years burying his emotions, afraid of letting anyone in. But Sarah made him want to be better, to take chances. Sarah, too, found herself slowly shedding the walls she had built around her heart. Her past had taught her to be cautious, but with Jack, she felt like she could finally breathe again. One evening, as they sat on Jack's balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, Sarah took a deep breath and turned to him. "Jack, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice soft but steady. Jack looked at her, his heart racing slightly at the serious tone of her voice. He had come to love these quiet moments with her, where the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them. "You know you can tell me anything," Jack replied, his hand reaching out to gently take hers. Sarah smiled, a little nervous, but determined. "I've been thinking a lot about my life, and what it means to be really alive. I've spent so many years just surviving, not truly living. And then you came into my life. You've shown me what it means to care, to trust, and to love again. I want you to know that, no matter what happens, I'm grateful for you. You've given me something I never thought I'd have again, hope. Jack's heart swelled at her words. He knew her past had been difficult, and hearing her speak so openly about the pain she had endured made him want to protect her even more. He squeezed her hand, looking into her eyes with a tenderness he hadn't known he was capable of. I'm so glad I met you, Sarah, he said, his voice full of sincerity. I can't promise that everything will be perfect, but I can promise that I'll be here for you, every step of the way. The promise hung in the air between them, a silent agreement that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. For the first time, Sarah felt truly safe in someone else's arms. She had been so afraid of depending on anyone, but with Jack, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. It was as if all the broken pieces of her life were slowly starting to come together. As their relationship deepened, Sarah found herself taking more risks. She invited Jack to meet her family, an important step for her. She had always kept her personal life separate, but Jack had become someone she couldn't imagine being without. She wanted him to meet the people who had supported her through her illness, the people who had been her rock. And Jack, who had never been one to rush into family matters, was surprisingly excited about the idea. It felt like the next step in their journey together. The evening of the dinner arrived, and Jack was a little nervous. Meeting family was always a big deal, especially when emotions were running so high. But when Sarah's family welcomed him with open arms, he felt an overwhelming sense of relief. They shared stories, laughed, and bonded over shared experiences. By the end of the night, Jack felt like he had known Sarah's family for years. It was a moment of validation for him, proving that their relationship wasn't just something fleeting, it was real. That night, as they walked back to Jack's apartment, Sarah turned to him with a smile. You did great tonight, she said, her voice filled with affection. Jack laughed softly. I was just being myself, he said. And honestly, I'm just happy to be here with you. Sarah stopped walking for a moment, taking his hands in hers. I'm glad you're here, too, she said softly, her eyes searching his face. You've become such an important part of my life. I never thought I'd find someone like you. Jack felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for, someone who made him feel whole. And as they stood there, under the soft glow of the streetlights, Jack knew that their connection had only just begun. It wasn't just about the blood donation anymore. It was about the life they were building together. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly between them. They shared more intimate moments, took trips together, and talked about their future. Sarah, who had once been so cautious about love, now found herself imagining a future with Jack by her side. And Jack, who had always kept his emotions locked away, began to open up in ways he never had before. He was no longer afraid to let someone in, because he had finally found someone worth the risk. But even as their love grew, there was still one thing that lingered in the back of Jack's mind. The truth about Sarah's health, and whether or not their love could withstand the challenges that still lay ahead. He had saved her once, but would he be able to help her through whatever came next? Jack didn't have the answers, but one thing was certain. He was ready to face it all, as long as they were together. As the days turned into weeks, Jack and Sarah's relationship continued to blossom. They spent more and more time together, and it was becoming increasingly clear to both of them that they were in love. What had started as a connection rooted in gratitude and fate had transformed into something deeper, something real. Their bond was unbreakable, or so it seemed. They had faced the challenges that came with Sarah's illness, and they had built a life together filled with laughter, warmth, and the promise of a future they both wanted. But just when things seemed perfect, Sarah's health took a turn for the worse. She had been feeling unwell for a few days, but she had brushed it off, thinking it was just a minor setback. However, when the pain became too much to ignore, she went to see her doctor. The news was not what she had hoped for. Her condition, which had been in remission for so long, had returned. It was aggressive, and the doctors weren't sure what her treatment options were. When Sarah received the diagnosis, she didn't know how to tell Jack. She didn't want to burden him, especially after everything they had been through together. But she knew she couldn't keep this from him. One evening, as they sat together on the couch in Jack's apartment, Sarah took a deep breath and turned to him. Her heart raced as she struggled to find the right words. Jack, sensing her unease, looked at her with concern. Sarah, what's wrong? He asked, his voice gentle yet filled with worry. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she finally spoke. I went to the doctor today, she began, her voice shaky. And the news isn't good. My illness, it's back. It's worse than before. She could see the shock on Jack's face, his eyes wide as he tried to process what she had just said. I don't know what to do, Jack. I don't know how to fight this again. Jack's heart sank. He had never seen Sarah like this before, vulnerable, scared, and uncertain. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly in his. He didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going to let her go through this alone. Sarah, he said softly, his voice filled with determination. You're not alone in this. I'm here with you, every step of the way. We'll face this together, just like we've faced everything else. You don't have to do this on your own. Sarah looked at him, her eyes full of doubt. But what if it's too much for us? What if I can't make it through this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack gently cupped her face in his hands, making her look at him. Don't say that, Jack said firmly. You're strong, Sarah. You've already fought so much. And you've come so far. I believe in you. I believe in us. And no matter what happens, we'll get through this together. I'm not going anywhere. Sarah felt the weight of his words, and for the first time since receiving the diagnosis, she felt a glimmer of hope. Jack's unwavering support gave her the strength she needed to face what was to come. She knew it wasn't going to be easy, but with Jack by her side, she felt like she could take on anything. In the weeks that followed, Sarah began treatment, and Jack was with her every step of the way. He accompanied her to doctor's appointments, stayed with her during difficult nights, and supported her through the painful side effects of her treatment. Their love for each other only deepened as they navigated this new chapter in their lives. There were moments of fear, moments when Sarah doubted whether she would make it through, but Jack was always there, reminding her of her strength and resilience. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, watching the sunset, Sarah turned to Jack, a small smile on her face. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for being here, for being with me through all of this. I don't know what I would do without you. Jack smiled back, his heart full. You'll never have to find out, he said. I'm here, Sarah. Always. And in that moment, Sarah realized that no matter what the future held, she had found something far more precious than she ever expected. True love, unwavering support, and the strength to keep fighting, knowing that she wasn't alone. As the months went by, Sarah's condition stabilized, but the fear of what the future might hold never truly left. Every day, she fought through pain, fatigue, and the emotional toll of her illness, but with Jack by her side, she found the strength to push through. They had become a team, facing the unknown together, and Sarah realized just how much she had grown to rely on him. He had become her rock, the one person who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. One afternoon, as they were sitting together in the park, enjoying the quiet of the day, Sarah turned to Jack with a thoughtful expression. Jack, she began softly, her voice filled with both gratitude and concern. I've been thinking a lot about everything, about how much you've done for me. You've supported me through all of this, and I don't want to keep feeling like I'm holding you back. I know this isn't easy for you, either. Jack looked at her, a look of tenderness in his eyes as he took her hand. Sarah, he said gently, don't ever think you're holding me back. I want to be here with you. I want to help you through this, no matter what. You're not a burden to me. You're everything. Sarah's heart swelled with emotion at his words, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to let down her guard completely. She had spent so many years pushing people away, afraid of getting hurt or being a burden, but Jack had shown her that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, even when things were hard. It was about being there for someone, no matter the circumstances. I know, she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of everything she had been carrying. But I still feel like I'm asking too much of you. Jack squeezed her hand, his voice unwavering. Sarah, you're not asking too much. You're asking for love, for support, for understanding. And I'm happy to give you all of that and more. We're in this together, remember? I don't want you to ever doubt that. Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with unshed tears, but a smile slowly began to spread across her face. It was the first time in a long while that she had felt truly at peace with the situation, truly at peace with the man who had stood by her through everything. Over the next few weeks, Sarah continued her treatment, and though there were still difficult days, she began to feel a renewed sense of hope. With Jack's support, she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could get through this. But more than that, she began to see that life was about more than just surviving. It was about living, about making every moment count, no matter how uncertain the future was. Jack, too, began to realize that his love for Sarah had changed him. He had always been someone who kept his emotions in check, never fully opening up to anyone. But with Sarah, he had found the courage to be vulnerable, to share his fears and dreams. He had found a love that was patient and forgiving, a love that didn't demand perfection, but instead embraced flaws and imperfections. And for the first time in his life, he knew what it meant to be truly happy. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Jack turned to Sarah, his voice filled with emotion. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I know we've been through so much together, and I don't know what the future holds, but I want to be with you. I want to build a life with you. Will you marry me?" The question hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Sarah was silent. Her heart was racing, her thoughts spinning. She had never imagined that she would be in this place, that she would find someone who loved her so completely, so unconditionally. But as she looked at Jack, she realized that she had found the person she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. With tears in her eyes, Sarah smiled and nodded. "Yes, Jack," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." In that moment, everything felt right. The uncertainty of the past, the struggles they had faced together, all of it melted away. They were no longer just two people caught in a storm of life. They were partners, bound together by love, ready to face whatever came next. And with that, their journey together truly began. As the days passed after their engagement, Jack and Sarah's lives began to settle into a new routine. Their love had deepened, and with the promise of a future together, there was a sense of peace that had settled in their hearts. Sarah's health was still fragile, but she was determined to keep fighting. Jack was by her side every step of the way, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt hopeful. They started making plans for their wedding, despite the challenges they still faced. It was going to be a simple ceremony, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the love they shared and the life they were about to begin together. But even as they moved forward, there were moments of uncertainty. Sarah had always been strong, but her illness had a way of reminding her of her own fragility. On one particular evening, as Jack and Sarah were sitting on their balcony, enjoying the quiet of the city below, Sarah's thoughts turned inward. She had been feeling more tired lately, and the weight of the uncertainty began to take its toll on her. "Jack," Sarah said softly, her voice a little shaky, "I've been thinking a lot about the future. About us. And I know you've been so supportive, but I don't want you to feel like you're carrying everything alone. I don't want my illness to define our relationship. I don't want to hold you back from living the life you deserve." Jack turned to her, his eyes filled with concern. He reached out to take her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Sarah," Jack said, his voice steady, "you are not holding me back. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm not going anywhere. We've already built something incredible together, and I'm here for all of it. Every challenge, every high, and every low. You don't have to face this alone. We face it together, like we've always done." Sarah looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. She knew she had been afraid of becoming a burden, but Jack had never once made her feel that way. He had been nothing but patient, kind, and loving, even on the hardest days. And it was in moments like this that Sarah realized how lucky she was to have found someone like Jack. "I love you," Sarah said quietly, her eyes full of emotion. "I love you too," Jack replied, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "And nothing is going to change that. You are my everything, Sarah." As the weeks passed, Sarah's health began to fluctuate. There were good days and bad days, but through it all, Jack never left her side. They spent their time planning for the wedding, but also for a future that, while uncertain, was filled with love and hope. On the good days, they laughed together, shared memories, and dreamed of what their life would be like after they got married. And on the difficult days, Jack held Sarah, comforting her, reminding her that they were in this together. One evening, as they were sitting together in their living room, Sarah rested her head on Jack's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence beside her. She closed her eyes, thinking about the journey they had been on and the one that still lay ahead. "Jack," Sarah whispered, her voice full of quiet determination. "No matter what happens, I want you to know that I'm so grateful for you. for everything you've done, for everything you are. You've given me a life I never thought I'd have again. And I want you to know that I've never been more sure of anything than I am about us." Jack looked down at her, his heart full. "We're in this for the long haul, Sarah," he said, his voice filled with unwavering resolve. "No matter what comes our way, we'll face it together." And in that moment, as they sat together in the quiet of their home, Sarah knew that, no matter what the future held, they had already built something extraordinary, a love that was strong enough to weather any storm. As the weeks went by, Sarah and Jack continued to face the uncertainties of her illness together, but their bond only grew stronger. Every day, they cherished the time they had, not knowing what the future might bring, but determined to make every moment count. They spent their days in laughter, planning their wedding, and finding joy in the little things. Jack made sure that Sarah never felt alone, even on her worst days. He was there, holding her hand, reminding her that they were in this together, no matter what. One day, as they were walking through the park, hand in hand, Sarah stopped suddenly and turned to Jack, her face serious but her eyes soft. "Jack," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I've been thinking a lot about the future. I know we've talked about it before, but I need to ask you something. What if things don't go the way we hope? What if I'm not around for much longer?" Jack's heart sank at her words, but he immediately pulled her into his arms, his hands gently resting on her back. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice full of emotion, "don't say that. We don't know what the future holds, but I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. We'll face whatever comes, and I will be right here by your side, every single step of the way. I'm not afraid of the future, not as long as we're together." Sarah closed her eyes, leaning into his embrace, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. It was moments like this that made her feel truly loved, truly cared for. But still, the fear lingered in the back of her mind. She had been through so much, and even though Jack had been her strength, she couldn't help but wonder what would happen if she wasn't there to share her life with him. "I just want you to know," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper, "that I'm so grateful for everything. For you, for the love you've given me, the support. I never thought I'd have this, Jack. I never thought I'd find someone like you." Jack pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. "You don't have to thank me, Sarah," he said softly, his thumb gently wiping away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. "You're everything to me. You're the one who's shown me what real love is. And I wouldn't trade a single moment with you, no matter what the future holds. We've built something beautiful, and we're not finished yet." As the days passed, they continued to navigate the ups and downs of Sarah's health, but Jack's unwavering presence made it easier for Sarah to find moments of peace. They laughed, they cried, and they cherished the love they had found in each other. And through it all, Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude for Jack, knowing that she had found someone who would stand by her, no matter what. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, Sarah resting her head on Jack's shoulder, they talked about their future once again. Sarah had been through so much, but she was starting to believe that she could face anything as long as she had Jack by her side. "Jack," she said, her voice quiet but filled with certainty, "I want to be with you. I want to spend every moment I have left with you. I don't want to wait for the perfect moment or for things to be just right. I want to marry you now, in the simplest way possible, because I know that's what I want." Jack turned to her, his eyes filled with love and admiration. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want to marry you too. Right now? No more waiting." And with that, in the quiet of their living room, surrounded by the warmth of their love, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they had already found their forever. They didn't need a big wedding. They didn't need grand gestures. They just needed each other, and that was enough. As the days passed, Jack and Sarah's lives seemed to fall into a beautiful rhythm, one filled with love, hope, and a quiet understanding of what mattered most. They had both decided that their wedding didn't need to be extravagant. It just needed to be meaningful. It was the simplest of ceremonies, held in a small park where they had often walked hand in hand, but it was perfect in its simplicity. Surrounded by close friends and family, they exchanged vows that spoke of love, commitment, and an unshakable bond. Sarah, wearing a modest dress, looked radiant, her smile lighting up the entire space. Jack, standing beside her, couldn't have imagined a more perfect moment. They didn't need grand gestures or lavish displays. Their love was enough. The ceremony was brief, but deeply moving. When Jack took Sarah's hand in his, looking into her eyes, he knew that this was what he had always wanted. She was his everything. The way she smiled at him, the way she leaned in for the kiss. He could feel the love between them like a powerful force. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about truly living, about making every moment together count. Their journey hadn't been easy, but it had led them here, to this moment of pure joy. After the ceremony, as the sun began to set and the sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, Jack and Sarah shared a quiet moment alone. Sarah rested her head on Jack's shoulder, feeling the calm of the evening wash over her. She was filled with an overwhelming sense of peace, a peace she hadn't known in so long. "We made it," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with both gratitude and contentment. "I can't believe it. We're finally here." Jack smiled softly, wrapping his arm around her. "I told you, Sarah," he said gently. "We were always going to make it. As long as we had each other, nothing could stop us." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. "You've been my strength," she said quietly, "through everything. And now, we get to live the life we always dreamed of. I don't know how I got so lucky to find you." Jack kissed the top of her head, his heart swelling with emotion. "I'm the lucky one, Sarah. You're the reason I believe in love, in life, in everything. You've made me the happiest man alive." As they stood there together, with the sounds of their loved ones celebrating around them, Sarah knew that whatever the future held, she had already found everything she needed. She had found love, strength, and a partner who would always be by her side. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with Jack, she felt ready to face whatever came their way. In that moment, they both knew that their story wasn't about the trials they had faced or the uncertainty of what might come. It was about how they had come together, how they had fought for each other, and how they had built something truly beautiful. It was about love, unwavering, unconditional love, and with that love, they were ready to take on the world, together. And so, their journey continued, not with a clear map or perfect answers, but with hearts full of love, hope, and the understanding that, together, they could face anything.